Oh, hello. I'm Mickey York from Cruise News and all over the place. I hope you're getting a chance to enjoy the holiday season with your family and friends. Unfortunately, we can't with our cars. Weather's not permitting. But the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan is. In addition to all the exhibits it has to offer, it is also home to one of the most unique automobile collections in the world. And today, we're going to check some of them out. So curl up next to the fire, pour yourself a cup of eggnog, or whatever you desire, and enjoy the tour. Today on All Over the Place. My grandma always loved her 1962 Impala SS, and so did I. Long story short, the car left the family, but I never stopped thinking about it. I tracked it down and bought it back. After a 3.5-year restoration, it's time to drive. I'm Mickey York, and I'm all over the place. The Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation is celebrating its 90th year of existence. It's on the National Registry of Historic Places and originally began as Henry Ford's personal collection. Today it's home to antique machinery, pop culture items, automobiles, locomotives, aircraft, and other interesting artifacts.
My name is Matt Anderson. I'm Curator of Transportation here at the Henry Ford, and I'd love to show you some of our vehicles. I would say maybe where it all begins is right here with this vehicle, which is the 1896 Quadricycle. This is the original first vehicle built by Henry Ford. He put it together in the shed behind a house he and Clara were renting on Bagley Avenue in downtown Detroit.
And this is the very first vehicle. It's the one.
The first one built by Henry Ford, yes, and one of the earliest surviving automobiles built in the United States. There were a few that came before him, but by 1896, this was still very much experimental technology. And Ford had no ambitions of producing these commercially. He just built it to kind of wrap his head around what it took to build a functioning internal combustion engine automobile.
What's unique about it, other than the fact that it's the first?
Well, I love how homemade it is when you look at it. I mean, obviously he calls it the Quadricycle because it's 4 wheels versus 2 wheels on a bicycle, but he's got a lot of bike technology in here. Bicycle tires, the chain drive, which runs from the 2-cylinder engine in the back. Maybe the coolest thing about it, or what the kids always love to see, is there's a little button in the tiller there. You push that and it rings an electric doorbell up front so you can warn people when you're coming down the street.
Could you take it out and use it today?
Theoretically, we could probably make it operate, but we wouldn't because it's just too precious as an artifact. The good news is we do have a faithful replica of this vehicle that we do run for our Old Car Festival and a few other special events throughout the year. In recent years, we've become associated with the Autorama, the big custom car show in downtown Detroit they do in late winter, and it's been our privilege to present a Past Forward Award. I get to go down there to Cobo and pick out the car that I think best captures the spirit of the custom car hot rod hobby, that has both sort of nods to traditional hot rods and then also kind of innovative and a foot in today too, if you will.
Is that easy to make that selection? I'd imagine that's a difficult task.
It is not easy. First of all, just the vast number of cars that you see there, and go and look at each one and give it its due, but the cars there are the best of the best, so it's always tough. And usually I try to avoid picking some of the Great 8 because they're up for the big award, but there's always so much even beyond the Great 8 to choose from.
For the classic Ford owner, that has to be a prestigious honor.
I would think so. I would hope so. We try to make it a proud occasion for any winners of the award, and hopefully they're proud to be associated with the Henry Ford in that form.
Well, for Ford and especially Mustang enthusiasts, this is the holy grail.
Yeah, we have a lot of people who will come here just to see this car. It's the 1965 Ford Mustang serial number 1. So this is more or less where the whole thing starts.
I didn't know that the first one was a convertible.
Yeah, it's surprising, and we're always clear to point out that we don't know necessarily if this was the first one off the line, because they would assign the VIN numbers before they built them. So maybe a hardtop went through first, but in any event, this is the one that got serial number 1 stamped into it. And if you've got to pick a first, that's a pretty good argument to make. So.
Any idea on what this would fetch on the open market?
I have no idea. It's a great question, though. Obviously, there's nothing really comparable to it. A run-of-the-mill Mustang from 1965 won't fetch a whole lot, but serial number 1, how do you put a price on that?
Well, it probably starts at 6 figures and goes from there, I would imagine.
Probably so, yeah.
Now, these cars, they're designed to be run and moved, and that helps preserve them. Do these ever get driven or started?
Theoretically, I like to say just about anything we have could be run, but we generally don't run things because once you do, you make a commitment to keep it running. It takes a lot of maintenance, and that can be a challenge. That said, we have run Serial 1 here for a number of special occasions. We had it running back in 2014 for the 50th anniversary of the Mustang's introduction, and we just had it running last summer when they built the 10 millionth Mustang down at Flat Rock. We brought this down, and they did a great overhead shot with Mustangs from just about every model year all posed together. So something special like that, absolutely, we'll get it going. Arguably, this is the best known car we have in our collection. This is the limousine in which President Kennedy was riding when he was assassinated in Dallas in November of 1963.
How did this come to be here at the Henry Ford?
For many years, the White House didn't have the budget to buy presidential parade cars outright, so they actually leased them from Ford Motor Company. And after a period of time, the lease would run out, or the car would just get to be too old, would go back to Lincoln, Ford Motor Company, and then they would turn around and give them to us. So we have a collection of 4 different presidential automobiles, and this was just one in the series. And the amazing thing that people are always shocked to find out is that after the assassination, this car wasn't just locked up in a warehouse or destroyed. It was rebuilt and put back into service, and in fact used right up through 1977. It's really quite astonishing.
So when did it arrive here at the museum?
We received it in 1978, and we chose not to put it on display right away, partly because it was still not all that long past the assassination, but also in those days we had a general rule where we waited until cars were 20 years old before they were officially historic. And we've moved beyond that thinking now, but that was the way we did things in the day.
Did the museum have a hand in restoring it?
We did not. In fact, when the car came to us, it had been used just weeks before it came to our collection, so it was still in good shape. These cars have to be kept, maintained to a certain standard, look presentable both inside and out. Though when you look at any of them closely, it's kind of surprising the number of door dings and scratches and chips in the paint. I mean, they do have a pretty hard life. So.
When looking at it, the noticeable difference is the roof. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, as built, the car had no armor whatsoever, and it had a removable convertible top. There were plastic panels that would protect from rain, but that was it. They were not bulletproof in any way. Of course, all of that changed after Dallas. The car received titanium armor plating, steel plating underneath in case of a grenade attack. It even has an air filtration system in the event of a gas attack. But yes, the most prominent change is that permanent roof on there with the bulletproof glass.
So I imagine this goes a little faster than the Quadricycle?
Yeah, a lot faster. The Quadricycle tops out around 20. This one a little closer to 220.
Okay.
But this is a 1967 Ford Mark IV, and this is one of the cars that Ford built to take on Ferrari at Le Mans. In fact, this car won the 1967 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Has this become a popular spot to visit the museum, considering the movie that's out right now?
Yeah, the Ford versus Ferrari movie, primarily follows the 1966 race, but if you know where to look, you do see this car, or at least a replica of this car, in the film. So it's gotten a lot of interest lately because of that.
How important is racing to the museum?
Racing has always been a big part of our story. In fact, Henry Ford really got his start by racing. He built a car in 1901, raced Alexander Whitten, who at that time was a superstar when Ford was unknown, and Ford managed to beat him, and of course went on to even better things from there on. So it's always been important to us. And in fact, we're in the midst of redesigning our entire racing area here. We're building a new exhibit we're calling Driven to Win Racing in America, and that will open early summer of 2020, probably early June. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah, why did the museum want to focus on the racing aspect of the automobile?
Racing has always been a big part of our collection here, and it's getting a lot of interest. There are a lot of museums that cover racing in depth, particular parts of racing, the NASCAR Hall of Fame, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, and so on. But what we wanted to do was create an exhibit that covered various types of racing that are popular here in the U.S. and kind of bring them all together under one roof. So with cars we already had in the collection, and with some newly acquired pieces, which I think people are going to enjoy, we've been able to do that.
We can hear the construction going on right now.
They're working as we speak, yes.
Racing to get it done.
That's right.
What's the story of this car over here?
Yeah, these are an interesting juxtaposition, you know, different time period. 67, the one behind it was built in 1906. That is a locomobile automobile that won the Vanderbilt Cup race on Long Island, New York in 1908. And it is the first American-built car to win at the Vanderbilt Cup, which at the time was the biggest road race in the United States. And this is the first American-built car to win at the 24 Hour of Le Mans. So you have two kind of all-American winners together.
In a winner's circle.
Absolutely. This is a true treasure. This is the very bus on which Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat in December 1955, launching the modern civil rights movement.
How did this end up coming in possession of the museum?
It's an interesting story. We actually acquired it through an online auction, believe it or not, about 20 years ago now. And we've gotten into a bit of a bidding war with a couple of other museums who were interested in having it, but we were determined to get this. And of course, the bus was used in Montgomery, Alabama, but was built here in Southeast Michigan. And of course, Rosa Parks lived in Detroit for many years, so it's not like we're entirely disconnected from the story. And we were able to get it and give it a good home. And it's one of my favorite artifacts. See, we've completely restored it. The bus was basically gutted at the time we got it. But I think in this case, that's good because we can invite people then to come sit on the bus and be surrounded by the history.
Yeah, it's one of the few, I guess, you can actually get in, feel, touch, and see up close, right?
That's right. Yeah, generally we don't let folks inside the car because of wear and tear to the original material. In this case, because it's all replicated, there is no damage to the original fabric, and I think it makes it that much more powerful that they can get inside it.
Among all of the historically significant vehicles you have in the museum, is this right up there on the first page?
Yeah, there's no question in terms of social significance, social impact. I mean, the Model T certainly being the car that put the world on wheels had its own impact, but in terms of social justice and progress, nothing can compare to the Rosa Parks bus. And this is a vehicle we collected, of course. It's incidental that it's a bus. The fact is it's so directly connected to Rosa Parks and what she did. That's what makes it important.
How popular is this exhibit?
It's very popular. Nobody, I think, comes to the museum without stopping here and spending some time. And it's really powerful to watch people here. You know, the children are moved. Adults in particular are moved. Some of them moved to tears because of what this represents. And we have an audio clip in there. You hear Rosa Parks tell the story in her own voice. And I think that makes it all the more emotive, too.
About this is that when you look at it, you know exactly what it is. It's the Wienermobile.
There's no denying it. Yeah, it's one of the most iconic food advertising gimmicks, I think, in the United States.
But where does this one rank among all of the Wienermobiles in existence?
So I like to call this a second-generation Wienermobile. The first ones were built in 1936. This one is from 1952. But yeah, the idea was just to come up with some kind of unmistakable brand icon for Oscar Mayer. And of course, this toured around the country, and there are still Wienermobiles today, a little more modern than this, but based on the same basic shapes.
What is it made out of? What was the base for it?
There is a Dodge truck chassis, in fact, underneath all of this from 1950-51 or so. But yeah, they just built the hot dog on top, and there you go.
Perfect. Matt, you ever get the feeling we're all just giant weenies in the big bun of life?
No, never.
Yeah, me neither. Well, we hope you've enjoyed getting a chance to experience just a little bit of the Henry Ford. There's so much to see and do here. If you've never been here, you really do need to put it on your list. Speaking of lists, unfortunately, I've been informed by my sources at the North Pole that I'm on the naughty. Hoping all of you made the nice this year. From all of us at Cruise News and all over the place, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.